fine folks over there in just a moment. Thank you very much.
D4 bad.
D4 bad? But why is it bad? Good question. We're going to answer that today. Now that we've had Last Epoch for its 1.0 launch, and most of us have gotten tons of time on D4, PoE, and Last Epoch, it's time that we sit back and we try to spot the differences. Let's start out with PoE. As you can see here, this is my Berserker. He slams, crashes, leaps, and shatters. Honestly, this is my favorite build, and I pretty much make this every other league at least. It's not completely my own build. I did watch a video on him years ago, but I've been adding and fixing him and changing him ever since for years now. As you can see, it's a bit hard on the wrist to play probably for too many hours a day. I normally save him for my second or third tune per season, because it isn't cheap to make the Berserker do enough damage and with survivability, but with enough investment, I've killed Maven with him and done 100% delis. It's pretty easy to see why he'd be fun. The speed, the shattering, the ruthless smashing. It can be an eyesore to figure out what's happening sometimes on the screen, but that's also part of the thrill. The amount of the times you just evaporate 3 packs without even seeing them, and then you notice that at some point you were left with 5% life. Now let's check on a more common playstyle. My Pathfinder Caustic Arrows Poison Ballista build. It's a much more desirable playstyle. Drop totems, run past mobs. I only backtrack for loot, sometimes shoot some frenzy just for charges, and hit a curse on a boss. I also have some Vault Auras in there for boss DPS as well. And this build pretty much just melts everything. It's a glass cannon. Most of you know by now, in PoE, glass cannon builds are pretty much well loved, and as long as you're highly mobile and you never have to stand still, you generally take 99% less damage in a map. Deaths will come, but they're mostly your fault. Now let's check on Last Epoch. Here's my Warlock. Chaos Fusion. I think I got this from Icy Veins. Max Roll has a bleed version, but I didn't want to respec. Here you'll see that I just lay down a Fuser and I just run. If there are some rares that I want dead, I'll hit them with some Chaos Bolts. In LE, once you know where the objective is, you just run to the end. This drop and run playstyle feels absolutely amazing when farming monoliths. I only slow down if I see some juicy packs or I need to go loot something. Many of the builds in LE play the exact same way. A lot of the abilities are just 1 or 2 buttons and then you run past towards the goal. Some abilities will follow you, some will put down a large area where you're sure that area will be cleared within a few seconds. You got builds like Void Knights that will surround themselves with damage, and then you just charge into packs. It feels great. A lot of the builds just work with a damage over time component. So they hit something a few times and let the ignites and bleeds finish off the entire pack. This is great, especially once you've really invested some time into the loot filter, and you're only seeing upgrades for yourself. One of the best and worst parts of LE, I believe, is it absolutely feels horrible to pick up items that you're just going to sell. While gold does have a value in LE, selling items for gold gives you very little, 2 to 300 gold for an exalted item. While finishing a 1 to 2 minute monolith with a gold node slams you with a rockin' 10 to 40k. I myself have a very hard time not picking up things that I see, so the loot filter is very important here. Now let's take a look at D4. This is my firewall source. Now imagine my DPS didn't suck. I think the first thing you'll notice is that every pack I'm using every ability that's off cooldown. Now once my damage is higher, I could possibly start saving my ultimates for bigger packs. But just look at all those cooldowns. I'm spending more time watching my cooldowns than what I'm currently standing in. This is very common with most of the builds in D4 that I've played. I've heard a lot of people talk about the cooldowns being the issue, but while I do feel cooldowns are a very lazy way to keep players more active in what's happening, I don't believe that cooldowns are the main issue here. If we look at my PoE Pathfinder, I've got Stillskin, and it's got a cooldown. But it's on my left mouse button, so it just goes off whenever it's on cooldown. I've never even noticed if I have it on or not. My Flame Dash has a cooldown, but it has 3 charges. All I have to do is a tiny bit of mindfulness not to be flame dashing too often, so that I have a charge ready for if I have an oh shit moment, or when I backtrack for loot and I find myself standing in some crazy looking shit. Another takeaway from PoE that really sells the skill system is our ability to really change the way a skill works and how we use it. Here I use Frenzy with my bow, but I do 0 damage. Literally can't do a single point of damage myself. But I still hit with Frenzy, so I gain Frenzy charges, it has culling on my enemies, it costs life and not mana, it's also linked to Despair, which does nothing for Frenzy, but my Despair now costs life instead of mana. Which, look at this, I'm level 95 and I have 0 mana. That's called customization. Something Blizzard really needs to learn something about these days. In LE, I have near the same level of customization. My KS bolts will cast Rip Blood for me twice a second. That's a massive amount of healing. It also will cast Bone Curse on hit as long as it's targeting a cursed enemy, which my gloves will apply a curse on any hit, as well as applying a bunch of debuffs and extra damage to cursed enemies. Half my abilities are completely automated. Even though I have Blood Rip and Bone Curse on my bar, I never hit them, ever. They don't do anything for me, well, except lower my DPS. They are simply there for show. My Fuser lowers target army, shoots multiple Chaos Bolts, breaks armor so I can crit more often, lowers necrotic resistances, which is also almost all of my damage. This all leads to a fun gameplay loop. Drop Fuser, run, drop again, run, then blast the shit out of some worthy targets. 2 buttons and a movement skill. And then, my movement skill, Transport, doubles my armor for 7 seconds, which the cooldown for Transport is only 4 seconds, so it's pretty easy to have 100% uptime on that. But then it also gives me Haste, Frenzy, it does a shit ton of damage at its destination. Let's look at Diablo 4's abilities. I can make my firewall damage enemies for 3 seconds after they leave my firewall. Really? And with the unique, I can make my firewall proc more firewalls, which often just doesn't even proc. This talent tree is a disgrace to ARPGs. It's a disgrace to Diablo, and it's a disgrace to gaming. And what about the map clear? Well, compared to LE or PoE, Diablo 4 just has you sitting in a room till you clear it. No way to loot filter out your good items or bad items, which doesn't really even matter because you generally need to pick up everything anyways because it's the best way to make gold. Which out of all of the games, Diablo 4 values the sellback price of items about 1,000% more than any other. No one in PoE is picking up random rares once you make it to white maps or at least in yellow maps. In LE, by the time you start mono farming, you should have already blocked out all rares that are not an upgrade. And the loot filter in Diablo 4? Why even ask for that? We'd all be broke and unable to craft gear. We have to have all these shit drops so that we have gold. So in summary, Diablo 4 button mashing just feels like shit. Too many buttons per pack. You generally just can't drop and run in Diablo 4 because you need the items to sell. No reason to get to the pack faster since all your cooldowns are still going to be unavailable. Loot filters wouldn't fix the game, so stop asking. The lack of talent and skill customization makes me feel like the devs just don't want us to have fun in a video game. So yeah, but I'd love to hear from all of you what you think. Do you also think D4 bad? Well, get in those comments and tell me I'm wrong. Can't wait. This is Waco. My next video is probably going to be on PoE 2 and why you're all wrong. I'm a new YouTuber, so please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It really helps. Thanks, bye.